back to my class. As you know that I am Halimini, teacher and junior lecturer of Ahmedabad High School and Junior College. Here in today's class we will discuss about the chapter 11th, that is from Social Studies. Okay, our chapter name is Sustainable Development with Equity. After this we will see people's right over the environment. Today there are countless cases where attempts in a modern development have caused a large scale environmental problems. Exactly. The case of the big dam is a classic case and on that very painful consequences. So the Narmada Valley Development Project is a single largest river development scheme in India. It is one of the largest hydroelectric projects in the world and is supposed to generate power and provide irrigation and help with flood control. Okay, the environmental cost of such project, which involves the construction of more than 3,000 large and small dams, were immense. The environmental cost of such project, which involves the construction of more than 3,000 large and small dams, are immense. The largest of the dam construct is the Sardar Sarovar, which floods more than the 37,000 hectares of forest and agricultural land. Here displacing more than 500,000 peoples and destroying some of India's most fertile land. The project has devastated human lives and the biodiversity by inundating thousands of acres of forests and agricultural land. But here the large number of those being displaced are Adivasis and Dalits. Development projects like Sardar Sarovar Dam have disrupted the lives and the livelihoods of thousands of the people. It is true that irrigation and the power has been produced are central to modern development. But for the people who have been displaced, and they are in millions of them, here the modern development has been unjust and destructive. Because of the modern development projects, they have lost access of their greatest resources. Exactly. The local environment, this is a point that make over and over again. Without the local environment, their lives would be reduced to nothing. From a state of self-sufficiency, they would be flung into scarcity. Now they can at least take one crop and hope that in the future irrigation would enable them to gradually move to multiple cropping. But with the displacement, their lives would become dependent on external forces and they would fall into poverty. Exactly. Here most the rural communities, the link between the environment and the lives of the people is very strong. The access of the environment serves a large number of their needs like food, firewood, fodder, economically valuable articles, etc., which they would have to pay for now. As they lose their access to environment, either because of the displacement or because of the environment is destroyed and polluted, the poor are the greatest sufferers. Exactly. The question of the environment and sustainability is intimately connected with the issues of equity. Clearly and exactly. It is also important to realize that not only do people lose out as they are removed from their local environments. Here the environment is equally of its rich biodiversity as traditional knowledge is lost along with the people. If the stock of the knowledge has been built and enriched over generations, peoples who are the repositories of the traditional knowledge, we know the name of each and every tree, herb and shrubs. We know its uses also. If we are made to live in a land without forest, then all these learning that we have cherished over the generations will be unless, and slowly we will forget it all. Exactly. So that today when the environment is endangered in multiple ways, it is important to understand the contributions that these caring of communities can make. Exactly. Here the resistance of the Sardar Sarovar and the other dams with the similar consequences in the Narmada Valley has taken that the form of social movement that is called as Narmada Undoland, NBA. So through this Undoland, a social movement has taken place, and that social movement is known as Chipko Movement. Here we will see in detail about the Chipko Movement. Another movement, the important environmental movements is the Chipko Movement, which started in the early 1970s in the Garhwal Himalayas of Uttarakhand by Sundarlal Bahuguna. Like the tribal people of Narmada Valley, the forests are a critical resource for their subsistence of the people of in hilly and the mountainous area. Exactly. This is because of their direct provision of food, fuel and fodder, and because of their role in stabilizing the soil and the water resources. As these forests were being increasingly filled for the commerce and industry, village sought to protect their livelihood through non-violent resistance. Exactly. The name of the movement comes from the word Chipko, means embrace, means hugging or cuddle. The villagers hugged the trees, saved them by interposing their bodies between them and the contractors' access. Village women were the main force of this movement. It inspired many people to look closely at the issue of environment sustainability. Exactly. While each of these movements has slightly different context, they are initially demanding the right of the local communities over the environment. Here the Chipko movement act to prevent the cutting trees and the reclaim their traditional forest rights and were threatened by the contractors. Here the Narmada Undoland has stood for the rights of the people over land, forest and river. So this movement described that the people's right over the environment. After that, now we will discuss about the towards the sustainable development with equity. For a long, policy makers have ignored the environmental issues. The argument has been that since developing countries like India are poor, here the developing economies need to grow. Development has to achieved at any cost. It is argued that growth in GDP and the modern industrial development are necessary for raising the living standards of the people and reducing the poverty. So the modern industrial and agricultural development are intensive in use of the natural resources, including energy. The depletion of these resources and the pollution of the environment is to be expected. It is a sacrifice that has to be borne for higher growth. One of the high economic growth and the prosperity is achieved. Here, the pollution and the environmental degradation can be handled. One can spend money and clean up the air and rivers and drink bottled waters and build cars. They are the fuel efficient. After all, this is the route that the development countries have taken. But this logic is wrong for various reasons. By now, you would have to realize that the environment is already in. India is a big country with a huge population. If we continue to grow and consume energy and other resources and also pollute the environment as the development countries have done, it would be a catastrophic for the earth. The damage of the environment will simply not be reversible. So that the idea the environmental damage is self-correcting is wrong. Besides this, we certainly do not want the environment to be destroyed before it is reclaimed for the future generations. If they restore the damage, would have to spend the crores of rupees to clean up the mess created today. Exactly. We need to spend money today besides ensuring that they are not polluted again and try further. Do you think we should follow the path that destroy the natural resources and leave them worse for the future generations? No. Here we cannot preserve that the contradictions. We first encourage and celebrate a lifestyle and that invites the disease and then spend thousands of rupees on its cure. Exactly. We are already experiencing the negative consequences of the rapid economic growth on several fronts. Here, the problem of groundwater, pesticides being too stark example. We have several thousands of communities living off the environment. To destroy the environment means to destroy these communities. It is unjust to ask the poor people to bear the cost of development. So that this doesn't mean that we do not progress, but we should able to integrate the environmental concern with the idea of progress along with the issues of equity and justice. Then we have to find an environmentally sustainable pathway out of poverty. It is not an easy task, yet the beginning have already been made. Like different groups have the rights of the local people over the environment. They have been major forces in raising the environmental consequences among the people and shift towards the sustainable development. Then the courts have given a number of judgments upholding the rights to a healthy environment as intrinsic to the fundamental right to life. Okay. In 1991, the Supreme Court held that the right to life under the Article 21 of the Constitution includes the right to pollution-free water and air for all the enjoyment of life. Here the government is responsible for setting up the laws and the procedures that can check pollution and introduce the heavy fines for those who pollute. Exactly. The variety of government institutions have been started to play the regulatory role. Then the third step is that on issues like the climate change, country have to try to reach all collective decisions. Here the third one is that on issues like climate change, country have to try to reach the collective decisions. Here the climate change affects all countries and peoples also. Some may be more than the others. We do not even understand and cannot anticipate many of these effects right now. Exactly. So that the individual, a country may take an initiative to reduce these emissions of greenhouse gases. Its environment would continue to deteriorate if other countries do not regulate their emissions. So that the solution at the global level with countries come together become very necessary. After this, then at the community. So that after this, at the community level, many community organizations have innovated and rediscovered the sustainable and equitable ways of doing things. These are the numerous instances of such initiatives in diverse fields like fisheries, mining, transportation, energy, agriculture, industry, etc. So that they considered a few initiatives that have a direct bearing on society's most basic need, that is food. After this, so that in the area of agricultural production, you might have heard that about the organic products and organic farmings. Yes or no? Absolutely yes. Here the organic farmers forgo the use of the chemical fertilizers and pesticides. Here instead they rely mainly on the natural techniques such as crop rotation and compost and biological pest control in farming. One of the main characteristics of the organic agriculture is the use of the local resource, including farm biological process such as availability of pest predators like birds, spiders, insects or soil microorganisms, which make the nutrients more accessible to the plant. The use of these synthetic chemicals inputs is minimized and the farms can be biodiverse as they produce a number of crops rather than only one or two crops, so that the production level can be maintained similar to the modern agricultural methods. Exactly. By this now many states have realized the need and the potential of the organic farming. Here the local level initiatives have influenced state policy. The Sikkim government has taken the bold step to ban the chemical fertilizers and pesticides. It is the first state in India that is planned to shift completely to organic farming by 2015. After that, Uttarakhand too is following the same path of being 100% organic state. So, another very interesting intervention of the sustainable food production and its equitable distribution is the alternate PDS initiated by community groups in Zahirabad area of Telangana. Here PDS means public distribution system. So by this we have completed our 11th chapter, that is sustainable development with equity. By this topic we have understand and we have noted that the modern development has ascended the problems of environmental destructions and today felt in many ways and quite starkly from the development concern, from the development center of growth of goods and services also. The goal has to shift towards the sustainable development with equity. Here the environment, source, equity and the sink functions and the sustainable development and the people's right over the environment, and everyone has a role to play in this transformation. Here individuals, companies, farmers, governments, courts, voluntary and community organizations and international organizations are also doing the same. Towards the environment, social movements are also taken place. All these things we have understood and we come to know about all the environment and development with equity. So up to here we have completed 11th chapter. Thank you. Till here we discussed in this class. Now we will continue in our next class. So now we will continue our topic, that is sustainable development with equity.